Hello, it's Kevin Kennedy. This is the Build Series live in New York City. Our guest today is a chart-topping Grammy-nominated musician who is, it's a really exciting time to chat with him because next month he's going to drop his first ever debut solo record self-titled, Wilder Woods. Please give it up for Wilder Woods. Just admiring, for those in attendance, we just showed the video for Electric Woman that features actually your wife, which is also the inspiration behind the song.
It is, and it took a lot of convincing to get her to do that video, but I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. That's really, I think, that's probably the first record you made for the album, right? Is that really where it all began?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was the first one I went in with a producer, Gabe Simon, first song we wrote.
Right.
And he ended up producing the whole record, and I had no idea that day that was going to happen. But when we started writing the song, I was like, what are we going to write about? I was like, man, I have this memory from college when I met my wife, you know, that I was going around telling everybody I felt electric after I met her. I was like, could we write something like that? And here it is.
Those great love songs, really, when you write about somebody so special to you in your life, I find a lot of artists say that it begins like with a sentiment, and then from there it's almost like a waterfall. It's like a stream of consciousness. Did it come pretty fast from there?
It did, actually, yeah. And I would say that sentiment is a great word for me. Like, I think that's what songwriting is about. It's like you find some sort of emotion that you can connect to. And then it gets less about the actual situation. It's more about the emotion, you know, and I think that's what people connect to.
The essence, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's the hard part about writing, because the essence is like not something you learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't get better at that. You get better at kind of like blurring your eyes or acting like a kid when you're writing songs. And that's the reminder, I think, for me.
Nothing worse than a literal song, right?
Yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants a English paper.
So this is as I said at the top, it's exciting because I think August 9th is the big day, right? That's when the record drops.
Yeah.
So that's if you're watching this live, what is this, about 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away probably at this point?
Yeah.
It's getting there. But I'm curious, like, when did the first thought cross your mind? Of course, you had great success in the band, but when did the desire to go solo or explore solo material, when did that really start?
I think almost after we started the band, I think anybody who's in a band probably would say that. I think, you kind of think like, what's out there? Like, is the grass greener, or is there, I think for me over time, what made it more possible was the idea, we used to tour so much. The band was doing like 150 shows a year. When that got down to like 50 or 60, the other half of the year I was at home a lot, and I do not like that for very long periods. Like if I'm home for a week, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't have a job. So I think that's kind of where it came from, like the idea maybe I can do this. And it wasn't at all in my head that I would do something this big or this like, major label or music videos. And I was just like, I just want to do something myself and see if I can finish it.
So that's where the idea started almost instantaneously, right, with joining the band, just kind of wondering what the other side is like. When did it become real to you? Like when was the moment that you took the step?
I read this book, The War of Art, and it was like just kind of encouraging me to do some things that I wasn't comfortable with. Making demos is one thing. I'm not an engineer. I've always like, that's for the nerds. I don't want to, write songs. That's the fun part, And so it sort of encouraged me, like, you have to do that part or nobody's going to hear these songs if you don't record them in some way. So I think that was where it started. I started going, my buddy had a tiny house out behind his house, and I was like, can I use it as an office for a while? And I just went there every day and wrote, what were the first probably 30 or 40 songs for the project. And that's kind of when I was like, I'm loving doing this.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of course, bands that then give us solo acts that are born out of bands, right? And I talked to a lot of artists, and some say that, they'll take songs to their band and they'll say, yeah, that's a good song, it's just not right for us. How do you determine like what's right for a project? How do you know if it's for you or if it's for a band, or does it come down to like values of a band? Like, how is that actually articulated?
I think it's hard. It's probably different for every band. I think for our band, I think I do, for the most part now, know if I write a song, that's a Need to Breathe song. Yeah. I kind of know what we do. I wouldn't say I knew what Wilder Woods was for a long time. I had to write a ton of songs to find the sound for that. And it's tricky because early in our career, I remember some of our biggest songs I would bring to the band and say, like, I don't think this is for us, but I like this. And they'd be like, no, that is us, So it's confusing. I played a lot of the songs as I was writing for the solo thing to the band, not in a kind of like, is this or that, but like, just if you feel emotionally connected to this, maybe we'll save it for the band or whatever. So we're still figuring that out. I don't know.
How do you find your identity as an act? Is it through, you talk about all the live shows. Is it through the live shows? Like,
with this, it wasn't that. It was a lot of collaboration. It ended up being, I wrote what I thought the record was going to be like, and then I started going in with other writers and producers. And honestly, it was the first song that we got. It was a song called Sure Ain't. when the production of that came back, I was like, this is the album finally. I had all these like million different references, influences that I wanted the record to be like, and that was the first thing that sounded like what was in my head.
Yeah.
You know? And I think once I had that, we kind of had a house with a window to get in there, you know, like, and so the rest of the stuff just fell out. But I think exploration is honestly making mistakes. I mean, I have some of the early stuff like had all these like dance things to them, and it was like, that's not right. And it's like you just kind of have to like try it all out.
Right. How close is family and the idea of family to the identity of Wilder Woods? Because we can get into the meaning behind the name, and I mean the song "Electric Woman," of course.
Yeah.
But is the idea of family, is that very close to the identity of this project?
I think it's huge. I don't think it would be. I think immediately when I started, you know, thinking about what I was going to write about, the one thing in a band that's difficult, I think, is obviously you've got 4 or 5 families represented, you know, so you don't want to step on toes. And the idea of like having your wife in a video is out, you know. So I think for me, that was like, this is an opportunity for me to tell more of my personal story.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And immediately I was like the Waterwoods, if I'd have named my boys like, I don't know, Christy and I don't know, Gerald, I wouldn't have called the name, the band after that. I'm sorry if your name is Christy and Gerald. But just I think I wanted it to be a part of that. I thought I was going to write this like love letter to my kids. That's what I thought. You know, I sat down. I was like, okay, when they're 18, they'll read the liner notes and be like, "Dad was awesome," you know. And then I realized a couple weeks later, I was like, they're not going to think that. You know, they're going to read it and be like, "This is the lamest thing I've ever seen." So it became more about like taking chances, and it's okay to make mistakes, and so this is kind of that for me.
Well, that's a lot like you talk about that theme of what you initially thought the record was going to be and then what it transformed. It kind of happened, there's a similar journey with the song Someday Soon, right?
Yeah.
Where you thought that was really going to be you talking to your sons, but then you found out you were kind of talking to yourself by the end of that thing, right?
Yeah, it turns out I'm not that good of a teacher. You know, I think I started writing it down. Yeah, the first verse is very like to them. And then by the time it gets to the second verse, it changes to I. And I think it's because, you know, the lessons, at least so far, I mean, my boys are really young. They're 1 and 4. I think I'm teaching more through action than I am what I'm actually saying. And I think the reminders that I would have them, you know, think of, you know, when they're adults or whatever, is stuff I need to still learn and be reminded of.
I wanted to ask you, like, how often, as somewhat of a new parent, do you find yourself trying to parent, but then also teaching yourself a lesson? That must happen constantly, almost.
Constantly, and it's impossible. It's like the standard that you hold other people to. I mean, that's a common thing is higher than you hold yourself to. And I think that's true. I would say they teach me a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think the innocence of it and the creativity they have, and just like I'm sort of neurotic, you know, like before I walk that door, I've got a million thoughts, you know, about am I enough, and is this going to be okay, and is this going to be cool, you know. They have none of those, you know, which is amazing, and that's so refreshing, and so
it makes you wonder where those come from, right? Because here are these kids, right, and they don't have
Yeah.
those things. So where
Yeah.
are those things coming?
I think it's experiences and failures and
course,
all that
right?
stuff. Yeah, but it does remind you like you can do that. You know?
Yeah.
You can like put your hands in the air and just like, you know. And so I think that's something that I try to do, channel in some ways. Like some of these songs are more love songs, or more like I try to think of my 18-year-old self, you know, and the way love felt then, and so even Electric Woman is like a song from a long time ago. The idea of it is from a long time. The emotion, I still remember, it's very strong.
Yeah. It's probably the mark of a song worth writing, right? If it can withstand all that time.
I think so, yeah.
I'm curious. A buddy of mine just had a kid, and he was like within the last month, and he was talking about how he kind of lets things go. He lets things go now more. Like things matter, like very small things. He doesn't sweat the small stuff. Maybe I was curious, like how it affected you as an artist having children. Do you ever notice you don't sweat the small stuff in the studio, or did it manifest differently?
I think it's been huge for. The band and now the solo record. I mean, I just think there was a time when everything we did was life and death. It felt to us, you know, and in a bad way. Like we just, any failure just seemed like this massive thing. And then we put pressure on the people that work for us and all that. And we were jerks. At least for me, I can speak for myself and just say, like, I just was driven. It was like, you know, lead, follow, get out of the way. That was my personality, you know. When you have kids to come home to, it does make the arguments like, well, my guitar is a loud tune or whatever. It's like, who cares? They tried their best. You know what I mean? So I think it has added a good perspective, I think, to us.
Yeah. I think the greatest musicians, the greatest songs are human, right? And that's what resonates with us. And I feel like being a parent must make you the most human, you know, version of yourself there is, right?
Yeah. And it's so cool. I mean, to see also like what humans are capable of. I was talking to somebody yesterday about like when your wife has a kid, they turn into this like insanely like different person, and they are given all these gifts in order to nurture this kid. And like I was telling him, I was like, I was more tired than her, and I didn't do anything. She just had this great gift, and so seeing that's really inspiring.
What is it like? Because Wilderwoods really hasn't done any live shows yet. I know you've done these sessions, right, on the promo run, but what is it like launching a band where you've never done a live show? It must be unique because
it's very weird. It's a lot of like, trust me, it's like I've had this vision in my head of what the live show is going to look like. And I think it's going to be really surprising to people, who are fans of the band and those kind of things. But it's been really hard. Like I've had this secret I'm like, holding for a long time. So I'm pumped to get that going.
Yeah.
We know who the band is and we've started to rehearse and all that. So it's going to be exciting to reveal it.
That's awesome. What does a band just in general learn by playing live shows?
I mean, a lot of things. I mean, all bands are different. I think there is some sort of language and sort of speed. And with this, like it's a whole challenge because we've got one album to play, and I want to play a longer show. I want to play like an hour and 15 minutes, and we got 35 minutes worth of music on tape. So the challenge is going to be like how we string it out and covers and kind of get our swagger. As a band, I think that's something but you can't do that. You can't fake that. You can't do it in a rehearsal space. You can't, you can play it all you want. And then that conversation you have with an audience has to be real.
Yeah.
I think you start learning how to do that as a band.
What covers are you thinking about doing on tour? Have you batted any?
We're messing with, I'm like doing a thing on Instagram right now where I'm trying to, like, what do you think?
Source some?
Cover?
Yeah. What is like the craziest suggestion somebody threw out?
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
It says a lot about a fan if what they say they want you like to cover. It's like James Taylor or it's Cardi B. Or
yeah.
So I've tried. I keep going towards that. I like the left center ones.
Yeah.
The best. But I think we're gonna do a version of Crazy. The Gnarls Barkley song, but like our own sort of swung version of it.
That's awesome. You like that approach with covers, like almost rearranging it just a bit?
Yes.
Your own?
I'm a huge Joe Cocker fan.
Yeah.
That I always liked his voice, but the records sound insane, and there are songs that you almost didn't know, from the other artists, the way he arranged them, they changed them so much. And I always love that. The other thing I like is like, I don't like doing full covers and shows. I always like, it's like a tag, and then we go back to our song.
Yeah.
So we'll probably do some Childish Gambino, maybe.
Nice.
Some little just pieces of songs. And
I remember you and the band did a great, I think it was like Counting Crows or maybe a Black Crows mashup at Sirius a couple years back.
Right,
It's like and they have such great acoustics there in that room. They have you guys do it in, and it was awesome. I forget what you mashed up, but yeah, I'm with you where I like when you don't commit to the full song. It's like
just like
dip
give
in,
a taste.
dip out.
Yeah,
Totally. It's funny you talk about liking the left to center suggestions because I feel like there's a ton of eclectic influences on the new album. 90s R&B caught my ear.
Yeah.
What kind of 90s
Well,
R&B can we hear?
I grew up. Well, we were joking about like me and the band yesterday about doing Belle Biv DeVoe or like any of the TLC and all that stuff like that. I just grew up with that, and even rap and all that. Like there's just the way the beats were.
Totally.
We sort of approached the guitars like they would the beats. And so instead of break beats, we cut up the guitars in that way. Like on a song like Sure Ain't, it's got like a real played guitar, but then we cut it up and reversed it. And it gave it that sound of like the way, a DJ would do it.
That's awesome.
Just to keep some modern elements into it and also our own musical take on it.
Is that the sampling that I've read about?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And we did it in just like probably not the best way, in the amateur sampling way. But that's like really appealing to me. That like I'm obviously a Kanye fan, but so like the idea of thought behind the samples and the covers that you're doing, or the sound having like 3 or 4 layers of meaning in a song is really, I'm a nerd out about that stuff.
Totally. I'm excited to check it out. And then just run through some of these other influences, because I've heard you also name drop like everything from Belle Biv DeVoe to like the Gorillaz.
Yeah, there was a lot of that stuff. I like the straight beat stuff. I mean, I just grew up in that music,
Yeah.
So probably the biggest influence, I think, is like the first minute of Isaac Hayes' Walk On By. So if you've never heard that track, you hear that. I describe it as like smoky soul.
Yeah.
That's what I'm always telling. That's like hard to define. But if you hear that, like old school strings and like a really swaggy beat, laid back, it's got a fuzz guitar over it. It's like it just has an attitude to it. I feel like you hear it and you kind of sink down in your chair a little bit. I would say the record, like that was the main reference of like, we got to go back. Does it give you that feeling or not?
Yeah. Do you think a lot about texture and just I guess, you name things like smoky, fuzzy. Do you think
Yeah.
about that a lot?
I think so. I think it's more of a feeling for me. I
Yeah.
think the good people I've been around, it's not about the technical part. It's really like you either feel it or you don't. Like you either
Right.
get this vibe from it or you don't get it. And if you didn't get it, there's got to be a reason. So I think the great musicians. I mean, this guy Ian Fitchick played on our record. He co-produced the Casey Musgraves record. He plays piano and organ and stuff. And I could say, can you play that chord like more hopeful? You know, he plays it and it is. You're like, whoa, that just changed the. So really good musicians, I think, are in tune to that, the
Yeah.
feeling more than they are actually what they're playing.
That's amazing. Now, you're on a tour, right? Is that announced or no?
It is, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about tour?
It's going to be insane. It's
Yeah?
going to be. I told them I was like, I want the music to stop twice, maybe all night. So hour 15 of just like pure like interludes, covers, like the whole thing. So think James Brown meets. What you know of what I've done in the past, but so high energy and just like I want the band to be loud and proud and give them all the chances to play a lot and
Yeah.
yeah.
What are the difference between the emotions putting this record out just by yourself and then maybe putting previous records out with the band?
It's a lot. I think you're more sure in a band situation, obviously, because there's like a lot of people who've checked a lot of checks and balances, and there's none in this really. So I guess I've questioned whether or not I'm insane a lot. During this process, as opposed to the other thing, I felt really confident every time we put it out. So that's been very different, obviously. And there's a lot of risk. I think there's just people like my band, and I like my band. So it's like it's hard kind of have that conversation sometimes. I feel like I'm like I don't know how to describe it. This is just different. This is like some other thing.
Yeah.
So.
Who do you go to in those times of doubt these days?
My producer Gabe Simon ended up being like a real collaborator to me, like a kind of like my brother is in the band. And he was like an odd pairing. The A&R guy set us up to write, and he was like, I don't think you're gonna like him, but just like see if you can get a song out of it. And we ended up being great friends because he's a character, really loud all over the place.
And he's worked with a ton of people.
He has, yeah, and he's had really good songs and a very like wide variety of type of music and super indie and dancey and but he's the guy I probably go to most. He's the one that calls me before I do something like this, and it's like, you got this,
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And it was all born out of Electric Woman, it sounds like,
yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
really
totally.
cool. Kind of full circle. All right, let's get to some fan questions, actually, here in the studio. We got a couple to get to. The first is going to come from over behind me. There you go. Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going?
What's that?
So big fans of the band, and obviously one of the things I love about your music there is that it draws on faith and spirituality without really kind of knocking you over the head with it,
Sure.
like some spiritual music can. So how much of this project are you still drawing on those themes in the new music?
I think some. I think I would say that about the band, that even the band stuff is not necessarily intentional. I think it's just who we are. It comes out in it. Our best stuff is like that. A natural response to what's happening to us in life. I would say that this is more my individual take rather than the collective, probably, with the band. It tends to be more positive, I think, with the band because you've got four guys, like they're not all in a bad place at the same time. So I think that it's interesting. Like I could kind of sort of like press into some of the more darker things, some on this record. But for the most part, I think music should leave people feeling good. It should inspire them. They should, to be better people in their family, work, whatever it is. Like I hate the idea that you'd leave a concert and somehow your life's worse, or like, I helped make that conversation suck for you, So
Great question. We have one more.
Hey, how's it going?
good.
So you're just talking about how you're kind of looking to do longer performances and a bit of your philosophy when it comes to doing covers. I was just wondering if there's any covers you have planned and kind of how you come up with your unique take on it.
Yeah, it's mostly about keys and tempos for me, which is a very nerdy answer. And then the other thing is surprise. I think the hardest thing was like, can we make a soul version of a Nirvana song, or can we make how do we really turn it on its head where people don't expect that from us? I think that's the biggest part. And then a set to me is like an album. I feel like I've got peaks and valleys already planned in there, and I'm like trying to fit the songs around that momentum. It just helps the conversation with the audience, I think. It's kind of like you start strong, and then you bring it down for ballad, and you kind of like bring them back in, and then you push them away again,
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Great questions. All right, they're telling me we're out of time. But the record, again, August 9th, we can go online to check out all the tour dates, right? Are those tickets on sale, do we know?
They are.
Oh, fantastic. Even better. Guys, one more time for Wilder Woods.